I look at movies in my spare time. I look at DVDs and laser discs at home because I love movies. I have no idea how many movies I've seen, thousands of movies.
I live for discovery. I live for finding somebody, putting it all together in a new way.
If I can see 3 movies this weekend, why should I just see one? I am a junkie. If movies could kill you, I would have been dead years ago.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to My Celluloid Heart podcast. This episode, new show called The Watchlist. It's about what I've been watching. I'm trying this new thing out. I kind of tried it, last episode. This is season 3, episode 63 of My Celluloid Heart, and so this is episode 1 of The Watchlist. However, I want to break that down. I don't know yet, but I'm working on it. But, like I said, friends of mine over at Movie Chatter Podcast, which I'll drop a promo here in a second for them, told me that, hey, why don't you do just what you've been watching as a separate show, and you can elaborate a little more, and then do your other show, and that can be a little shorter, more concise, blah, blah, blah. I said, hey, that's a great idea. I love it. So that's what we're doing. But first, let's start with some news that I found out. Very exciting. Some of this news you find out with these people doing these, questions and answers, Q&As on Instagram. And I found Sylvester Stallone was doing an Instagram, and one of the questions was, hey, why can't we get a Demolition Man 2? And he said, oh, that's happening. We're working on it right now. And I'm like, oh, my God, that's so cool. So that'll be awesome. As cheesy as it was, it'll be nice to see Demolition Man 2 again. That'll be neat to see him again. And maybe, who knows if Sandra Bullock and what's his name will come back. But, hey. And then they asked him, what were some roles that you passed down that you regret? And he said, oh, we all have a bunch. He said, Witness. I turned down Witness because I was busy. Coming Home. He said John Voight won an award for that. I lost to him, because I didn't do that movie. He said Die Hard I was asked to do, but I was, obligated to do something else. And a couple of Quentin Tarantino movies, which he said he would love to do, but he was just busy at the time. And I'm like, oh, man, that'd be cool to see him in a Tarantino movie. And then they asked what he's got working on right now. And he said they're actually working on a movie called Hunter. So I don't know if that's the TV show Hunter or if that's Steve McQueen's last movie, Hunter, where he was a bounty hunter. So that'd be cool. Either one will be awesome. The bounty hunter one, a little better. The other one, though, cool because, it works for me, that kind of stuff. If you ever watched NBC and Hunter back in the 80s and 90s, early 90s, maybe late 80s, whatever. And then also they're remaking Nighthawks into a streaming series. So that'll be cool. I don't know if he's involved, meaning him being in it, or if it's going to be a younger cop and a black cop and undercovers. And he was talking about how that was a really good movie and he really liked it, but it just didn't do very well when it was released. So those are some interesting little tidbits. This show is not news of the world. It's just news that I just happened to run across, and I was like, I gotta tell people, because this will make people that love movies, they would love to hear these things. So normally on this show, I'm just going to talk about what I watch, if this show works. My other thing on this show is that this would be the watch list of what I watch, and then the next week on a Wednesday would be the regular show. So every other week would be the watch list, or the next week would be the show. So we'll see how this works. There's some guys named Take Two Podcast, and they put a couple shows out on their feed. And so they'll name it like, Spotlight Episode 1 about, Ryan Gosling or something, and they'll have a whole episode on just Ryan Gosling movies. Then the next one, so that'll be episode 1, but it's actually episode 567. So anyway, that's what I'm working on, is trying to, is this season 3, episode 63, episode 1 watch list? I don't know. That's a lot of numbers and a lot of craziness. So maybe when you see it in your feed, it'll be, watch list and the date or something. Who knows? I'll figure it out as I'm typing it into the system, and we'll see what happens. And I can always change it, and it changes it in your feed. Anyway, so let me get on to, so these guys, it's not just Laverne and Shirley that comes from Milwaukee and Schlitz Beer. It's also Movie Chatter Podcast. So I know I'm a movie podcast, and well, Philip, why are you promoting another movie podcast? What if I turn yours off and I jump over to theirs? If you do that, that's fine. Hopefully you won't. But I do recommend these guys, Dave, Don, and Kelly, and they do a show. I'm going to play their promo here in a minute. And they do a show where they just talk about what they've been watching. They watch newer stuff. I watch some old things that I find or that I've never seen, and so it's pretty interesting. So anyway, here's their little promo, and then I'll come back and talk about them. So, forget about Laverne and Shirley. Let's talk about Don, Dave, and Kelly.
Hey, Phil. From Milwaukee, it's Movie Chatter.
Have you had your fill of Phil? Come check us out.
Oh, yeah.
Do you like bad podcasts? Well, you must. If you're listening to this, we're just as bad as Phil.
Phil's a fabulous podcast.
Right. If you want to hear something a little less tuned up and less prepared,
The average Joe kind of attitude.
2 old dudes and a girl,
Yes! Yeah, there you go.
plus a really old dude.
That sounds like a sitcom, so it's got to be a good podcast.
There you go.
Hey, we talk for a long time.
We just talk. You
And
got to just yap for a long time, and then eventually something comes out.
Exactly.
that's the way we like it.
There was a lot of boob.
That's the way we like it. So, hey, we even got sound effects. We got 3-year-olds in here recording with us today.
He's really good at dinosaur roaring.
We'll talk about Netflix. We don't talk about the old stuff like Phil. We talk about
What's current, what's
We
new.
don't discriminate, because every now and then I'll watch something from the 90s.
We
just
do.
randomly.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Well,
we had a
Phil
whole
likes
section of old
Phil likes
stuff.
to watch the 30s.
We
Yeah,
usually
vintage.
don't dive that deep.
Yeah.
We don't. So it's a variety.
Give us a listen.
Movie Chatter Podcast.
MovieChatterPodcast.com.
There you go. Or Movie Chatter Podcast on Instagram. All good stuff. Thanks, Phil.
So there you go. Movie Chatter Podcast. And they have a show every week. Forgive me, Dave, if I forget. Every Monday, I think, is when I get it. I work at night, so it comes up, and I'm like, is this before midnight? Anyway, they do a week in review, and then they also do 10 minutes at a time, which kind of like what I'm doing with the watch list and my regular putting 2 movies together. So what's good about his new idea of 10 minutes at a time is they'll either watch a movie 10 minutes, they pause it, hey, what do you think so far? Well, I think blah, 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 and they'll discuss it. Okay, let's get back into it. 10 more minutes they'll play, and then they'll click on the mics and be like, hey, well, is it getting better? Is it getting worse? What do you think? And then what they're doing now is they watch some shows from, say, Amazon Prime or Netflix or wherever, and they'll go through and they'll say, let's just watch the first 10 minutes of this and see what we think. And they'll watch a little bit and they'll be like, I'm not going to go back to that. And one of them might go, hey, I'm going to go to that. So anyway, pretty cool show. They're sponsoring my show. I'm making all kinds of money from these sponsors. Not really. Just doing it as a favor. I like the guys. We seem to have this little podcast community there on Instagram and stuff where you meet people. And it's pretty fun. And So they listen to my show. I listen to theirs. So we're doing good. Kelly does not have time. She has never heard my voice. So that is fine. Maybe she'll be able to, maybe you can replay this for her on the show. And she'll be, oh, that's what Philip sounds like. Anyway, so now we're on to what I have been watching. So now here's the other thing with calling it the watch list. Now, are you going to think, oh, this is Philip's watch list, what we should watch, the 10 greatest movies that we should watch. What's top of the list, Philip? Raiders of the Lost Ark. What's second on the list, Philip? 7. What's third on the list, Philip? I don't know. How about From Dusk Till Dawn? Really? You're out of 10. No, it's just one that I can think of right now. But it's not that. It's shows that I've watched in the past 2 weeks that now I'm telling you about. So, and this has actually been about a week since I put the show out on Wednesday. I talked about what I've been watching. So this was actually a week. So next week it'll be a little longer. But anyway, let's get into it. They talked about me watching 1930s and 40s movies. Let me get into that. But first, I just remembered correction from the last show that I did, which is I couldn't think of the movie while I'm talking to Jason with Eddie Murphy and Dudley Moore. It's called Best Defense. And Eddie Murphy's in a tank, and, it's a comedy. Didn't do very well. I think it came out in 1984. Didn't do very well. I think it was Eddie Murphy's second film. Might have been first, but the first one to come out was like Beverly Hills Cop or Trading Places. Anyway, so what I've been watching, I just want to correct that because I don't want people going, dude, you're killing me. But people probably aren't really killed by it. But anyway, if you know what I mean. Like, there's things that I mess up because I'm going off the cuff and I'm talking, and I run a blank on somebody's name, like the guy that I couldn't think of from Demolition Man that was in Blood and Bled Out, and he was in Miss Congeniality. And I'm hoping the more movies I name that I can think of him, but I can't. And that's one that I'm gonna be an adult now, and I'm not gonna go back and make that correction. I'll make that correction for myself. And but anyway, it starts with a J. I know his name does, but anyway, who knows? Now all kinds of names are jumping in my head. Anyway, what I'm getting at is the movie that I watched, 1934, The Thin Man. If nobody has seen this movie, The Thin Man, they made a series of these. They made like 6 or 7 of them. They made a lot because they were doing good. And it's, see, here I'm drawing a blank again. Myrna Loy and this guy. And it's a great, like, it's detective, like they're clever. If you're like me and you're stuck in a time capsule and you only remember the 80s or the 70s or the early 90s, then you will know that Heart to Heart, you'll know that show. So that's a show where it's these millionaires. They have a butler. Thin Man, they don't have a butler. But they have a butler, and they go and solve crimes. He's a detective. He's really good at detecting. And he gets called into all these things. And William Powell is his name. See how I looked that up? You didn't know I was looking it up? I was looking it up. You might have, because I stuttered over some of my words. But anyway, it is very cool. It's quick. It's fast. It's funny. It's where they explained it on Turner Classic Movies. They had a good host intro and stuff. And it was about that the man and the woman, the husband and wife, it's not like the husband does his thing and the wife's just tagging along. The wife has her stuff to add to it, and she adds so much to it, and she gives him shit right back, and he just, it's so good. They drink a lot, especially him, which is funny for 1934. Like, he wakes up, he wants another drink, and wakes up in the middle of the night. He's like, she's like, you want a drink? Want me to make you a drink? He's like, no, I'm good. And then he goes, yeah, I'll have that drink. Anyway, quite funny. But really, he puts these people in a room at the end. You're stereotypical. Everybody's there for dinner. He tells certain people to sit by each other. He doesn't even know the answer to this murder, but he starts kind of picking on each person, and they start turning on others. And he's slowly putting it together as he does. It's really cool. It's on Turner Classic Movies. You can probably still find it on there. If you if you have the app, you can watch it on there. It's like, for free. You just got to sign up with your provider. And it's really good. I've been wanting to buy all of those because I haven't seen all of them. I've seen like maybe the first 3. But it's one of those are $10 each. And it's like, if I buy these, I'm going to watch them and then I may never go back to them. And that's always my problem with movies. Should I, Flash Gordon, like I told you guys, $5. I couldn't pass that up. Whether I go back to it or not, it's worth $5. So some of you may go, Flash Gordon, 1980, it's not worth it. No, it's worth it. It's I grew up with that, so it was cool. And speaking of movie chatter, they're the ones. Dave is the one that sent me the Moonraker stuff, so I'm highly thankful for that because that's like, to me, movie history. It's like a piece of history that was one time at a movie theater. Anyway, pretty cool. Then me and the wife saw Psych 2, Lassie Come Home. So Psych was a show, if you know. It was on, I think, AMC or something. I forget what. USA Network, I think. And then they did 8 seasons, and then they were done. Then they came back, did a Christmas episode 3 years later, and that was pretty cool. And it was fun. And then now that Peacock Channel started up, they did Psych 2, Lassie Come Home. Lassie's one of the cops. He's the chief of police now. And it's funny, and it's good, and it's pop culture, and it's, it's him and Gus, and he's not really a psychic. He's just really good at his job. He can look at somebody and know that, oh, they have dirt on their shoes. They came from the field. And the dead body's in the field. That guy killed the guy because he's got dirt on his shoes and nobody else does. It's just a simpler thing of how I'm. Anyway, you know what I mean. And it's just, they mention a thing on there that my cousin mentioned to me. We're on the phone, and I mention Manimal. Again, you guys are like, oh my God, Philip. Granted, you're turning 49 at the end of August. But Jesus Christ, nobody talks about Manimal. Well, on Psych 2, they talk about Manimal. He says, I learned everything about being a man from Manimal. Just like a throwaway line. But you go, oh, fuck, Manimal. I remember Manimal. So funny. And I didn't realize this until looking at news, not related to this, but like looking at news and stuff. And I got one of those clickbait things, 30 shows that used to exist that you won't believe existed, and one of them was Manimal, and it only lasted 8 episodes. I thought at least a full season. Automan, again, you guys are like, oh my God, get out of the 80s. Automan lasted a full season. This one lasted 8 episodes. So, but the reason was because everybody thought, oh, he can become any animal he wants. It was a guy who had these special powers, who could become an animal and fight crime. And he's like a detective. I don't know. Detecting was big back in the 80s. You had Rockford Files, late 70s. Rockford Files, Simon & Simon, Magnum P.I., Manimal, Stingray, The Equalizer in a way was a detective. Anyway, but all he would become is a Black Panther or like a hawk. And people were like, well, what the fuck? He never turns into anything else. Forget it. I'm out. There was also a show called Street Hawk with a motorcycle that went 300 miles an hour and made turns, which was funny. And that one lasted however long, but that was another one of those kind of a detective thing. But anyway, enough of that. Psych 2, really cool. So I'm talking to my cousin. I mentioned Manimal, about how I'm stuck in the 80s. I love all that pop culture stuff. Like, I'm just a fiend for it. I know a lot of people are, but I'm just like, oh my God, that's why I like doing the podcast, because I can bring up shit. That's why I like hanging out with my cousin, who, by the way, is going to be on the GoldenEye episode, because we can talk about this old shit, and he'll remember. My friend Joe Weedman, He knows all that. My friend Joe Weedman would be like, Tales of the Gold Monkey, nobody cares. I'm like, I fucking love Tales of the Gold Monkey. Anyway, another 80s show that everybody's going, I have no idea what you're talking about. You're all like my wife. Who's Peter Falk? He's Columbo. Okay, I know Columbo. I don't really know. Anyway, I'm going off on a tangent. This is why I can do the watch list. I can take a little bit more time if I want. But anyway, and my cousin goes, oh, Manimal on Psych. I go, yeah, right? And he was like, yeah. And we knew like right away, like when we heard that, we were just like, yeah, Chip got that. I'm like, I got that. Anyway, pretty cool. That was from 2020. Of course, on Peacock. Everybody check out Peacock. I mentioned it on the last show, that show Heat, movie Heat, with Burt Reynolds, and from 1986. It was really good. I really liked it. So I talked about it last week also, a movie called Gentlemen Prefer Blondes from 1953 that I had never seen, directed by Howard Hawks, which is weird because when you think Howard Hawks, you don't think women. You don't think like an all-women cast. You know, there were some guys in it, but it was female-led comedy. And you don't think musical, but it was all of that. And Howard Hawks directed it. And, of course, it's famous for, the French may be grand, but, diamonds are a girl's best friend. I do it so well. And Jane Russell, Marilyn Monroe, and it was fun and cool, and my wife had never really seen Marilyn Monroe act, so when it started, she's like, is that Marilyn Monroe? And I'm like, yeah, and she's talking with that, like, oh my God, like, what? Oh, but you have diamonds? Oh, diamonds. And I'm like, is that voice getting to you? And my wife's like, yeah, a little bit. And I go, well, that's not really her. That's her character that she's playing like this person. And anyway, it was really interesting about a couple things. I'm not going to dive into it because Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, 1953. People say, like, it's great. It was good. I'm glad I watched it. I'm not going to watch it again. I might watch it again for, like, those scenes, like, diamonds are a girl's best friend. Maybe that's it. But what was interesting at the end, she's, like, talking to the father of her boyfriend, her fiance, who she's going to marry, Marilyn Monroe is all about the money. Jane Russell is all about having fun. So she's like hanging out with like the gymnast, the Olympic guys, and Marilyn Monroe is like hanging out with this oil baron who's like buying her shit and all this stuff. And she's just doing that. But she also has a boyfriend at home. They're on a ship and all this stuff. They get off the ship, the cruise ship. She's with her boyfriend. He proposes to her. The father says, I don't know. You're just out for money. That's all you want. She's like, yes. She goes, no, I don't want his money. I want your money. And he's like, whoa, well, at least you're being honest. And she's like, yes, what's the difference of a pretty girl wanting to better herself? She said, if you had a daughter, wouldn't you want her to not be poor and not live miserably? You would want her to live nicely and with expensive things. And he's just kind of quiet. And it's like, yes, that's totally true. Like, you don't want your kids to suffer. You can't hold that against her because she wants to live a better life. She's going to give him all the love and treat him the best she can because that's what she does. And it's great. It's just a cool little movie for 1953. I enjoyed it. Not as good as Some Like It Hot, of course. That's the better of the Marilyn Monroe movies. But, yeah. Then on Turner Classic Movies, so I saw that on Turner Classic Movies, Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, if you want to go check it out. So I think I talked about this before. Quentin Tarantino, the New Beverly is his movie theater in L.A., and he played, when he released Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, they played double bills of all these 1969 and 68 movies that were coming out around that time that were either movies that Rick Dalton would have been in or that somebody like Rick Dalton coming from a TV show was trying to be an actor, in main films, like all these little things. And one of them was a movie called Model Shop from 1969. And it has Gary Lockwood in it from 2001, the same year. And if I'm wrong, if 2001 came out in 68, forgive me. Because I remember it was before we landed on the moon, so probably. Anyway, so they're like, so Gary Lockwood's in it. It's really interesting film because I'm watching it and they're not doing much. And I know that, Gary Lockwood gets in his car to drive somewhere, and it's reminiscent of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood when Brad Pitt and him get in a car and they drive somewhere. It's just the camera in the car driving somewhere and parking and getting out. And that's what this was. And it's his day of, he's got no job and he wants to, and he's worried about that the draft is coming and that he's going to be drafted for Vietnam. And he's got no job and he's just upset with the, designing buildings, architecture. He's like, nah, it's just not my bag. Like, I want to make something now. Like, they're slowly, like, I don't want to be a flunky. I want to be the guy, And so he goes on this trip one day, finds this girl, sees this girl that he's attracted to, this woman. He follows her to her house. Then he follows her later. She goes to this place called the Model Shop where you could take pictures of, they used to have this back in the day where you'd go in as either a photographer or a pervert who wanted your own pictures of these women. You pick out the woman that you want, the model you want in the book. Then she goes into this room. You go in there. They give you a camera. You go in there. You tell the woman how you want her to pose and what you want her to do. You take pictures. You have, on this movie, they had 15 minutes, cost $12. 15 minutes, takes all of the pictures, one roll of film, and then gets the film, and then he goes to develop it. And he's just infatuated with this girl. And then he goes back, and he does again and asks her out and all this stuff. And they have this really cool discussion about, like, where she came from, what made her do this, what's going on with him. He's like, well, I don't know. The draft might be up. Then his buddies tell him, like, hey, man, you should get a job here. We'll give you a job at our newspaper. But then he calls his parents to find out how things are. And all of a sudden his dad's like, yeah, you got draft notice came in and you're going to the draft. And he's like, but I don't want to go. And his dad's like, what are you, a coward? And it's like, oh shit. And then he tells his friends and it's like, brings the whole room down. Everybody's like, oh shit, man, I'm sorry. And then he goes to see that girl again. And he's like, I just want one more night before I have to go ship off and find out what's going on. And it's just really cool. And it's, of course, a social commentary on Vietnam. But a weird little movie of just this guy driving around. And I'm sorry that I wasted a lot of that time talking about it. But at first I'm like, it wasn't really. And then I'm like, well, maybe there was more to it. Anyway. So then I got the TV on. Pluto TV I've talked about. And Highlander is on from 1986. I missed the opening of it at the wrestling match. And I remember my friend Colleen, she was like, when she first went to see that movie, she saw the trailer, was like, cool, and then went to see this movie, and it starts in a wrestling match, like WWE, WWF. And she's like, what the fuck? Like, did I go into the wrong movie? Like, what's going on? Did they mess up the... And then it started, and then it was, then they fought, and it was Highlander shit. And that was really good. And again, you got Queen doing the soundtrack. You got some really cool stuff. Some stuff's a little dated and a little like, like the Kurgan pulling the car open. Like, it's like, But some really cool fights, some really cool scenes, some really cool, Sean Connery teaching him, and then the wife, with the wife getting old and him never aging, and it's like, oh man, it's so sad. It's I can't think of that guy's name. I was gonna make a joke. It's like Dazed and Confused, but in reverse. He stays the same age and they get older. So it's Matthew McConaughey's worst nightmare. that's what I was working on. That was a joke I was working for. Thank you, everybody. Then after that, I think maybe on that same Pluto channel of like either cult movies or maybe probably 80s Rewind or something, came Virtuosity from 1995. So it wasn't 80s Rewind, but I was flipping around and Virtuosity was on. And again, I didn't catch a full beginning of this, but this I remember seeing in the theater and I was like, oh my God, this is so genius. You know, it was around the time Lawnmower Man came out, I think maybe 93. And Lawnmower Man, you're like, oh my God, that's so, like, yeah, I could see that happening, like, in the future. And Virtuosity, you're like, oh my God, like, this is cool because it's ahead of its time. But you watch it now and you're like, oof, it's a little rough. If I'm Russell Crowe, I'm going to watch it and I might have some fond memories if it was a good shooting time. But if I'm him and Denzel, I'm going to go, oh. But he plays a bad guy who's part killer and part AI in this computer, who's killed Denzel's wife and child. And Denzel knows that guy is the amalgamation of, he's part, evil computer, and he's part the guy that killed, he's got his being in there somewhere, his DNA in a way. And so he goes after him, and Denzel is in prison. I forgot about this. He's in prison because they do a flashback. He shows up to save his wife and child from this serial killer who has the news crew there. And he's like, I'm going to kill them if he doesn't show up. And Denzel sneaks in to get in there while the guy is having this press conference. And Denzel sees his wife and his daughter in this door through the window, through the glass. And he goes to bust open the door, and when he does, it hits a beam, like a laser beam, that activates a bomb, killing his wife and daughter and blowing him backwards and blowing off one of his arms. The guy starts laughing because he feels the whole room shake, and he knows that he's killed Denzel, he's killed the daughter, and he's killed the wife. And he's like, oh, it's great, haha. All of a sudden, out of the doorway comes fucking Denzel Washington with one arm, and he shoots that guy like 4 times. And he starts shooting like all the bad guys. And the film crew's coming up behind him, like the reporter and the cameraman, and Denzel just spins around and shoots them and kills them. So that's why he's in prison, because he killed these innocent people. And you're just like, holy shit. Like, for 95, I felt that was still a little like, oof. But maybe it was just because I hadn't seen it. Maybe then I'd be like, oh, yeah, a bunch killing, shooting, awesome, yeah. But anyway, it was fun. The ending is a little, weird, but it's cool, too, because he's set up, of course they killed the bad guys, set up this thing. Anyway, check out Virtuosity. He sets up this end thing that's going to blow up this other girl's daughter, and he's got to find it. And it's like, oh. And here's something else that I did learn from Virtuosity, where I was like, who's this girl? Who's this woman? Because she's not a very good actor. And it comes to find out it's a fucking girl from Drugstore Cowboy, which I'm drawing a blank on again. I almost had it at the tip of my tongue. But it's like, holy shit. Like, I'm like, I thought she was a better actress than that, but obviously not. So it's just, but Kelly, damn it. Hang on, I almost got it. Sorry, Kelly Lynch. So Kelly Lynch, I'm just like, wow, I thought she was better than that. I remember her being a better actress, but with Virtuosity, she was not very good. Anyway, sorry, everybody, to waste your time on Virtuosity. I found it another nostalgia type of fun thing. Then I saw Future World from 1976. So about a month ago, maybe a month and a half ago, I watched Westworld, the original movie. My friend Joe Weedman lent me Westworld Season 1 from HBO on DVD or Blu-ray, and I haven't watched it yet. And I should, but I'm worried that then I'll get addicted and I'll want to watch the rest, and then I'll have to pay for the rest because I don't have HBO. So anyway, Future World is a sequel, and it's about, they can go to Future World, or you can still go to, like, they closed down Westworld, but they still have, like, you can go fight gladiators. You can go to Future World, which is like you get on this spaceship, they launch you into space, so it really seems like, oh, we're really going to space, but really you're still in that same building. But it's got Peter Fonda and I forget the girl. Anyway, Peter Fonda in it, and the guy, again, I don't know names, but I knew this guy, and I looked him up, and I was like, oh, that's his name, but I didn't remember it. But this is how I know him, because I grew up on TV watching reruns of Rockford Files. He's Jimmy's friend in Rockford Files, who was always a fuck-up. Jimmy had to always help out. He was in this movie. He played like a small part, but it was really cool. I was like, oh, cool, there's that guy. But anyway, it's all about Future World, like replacing higher ups in the government, because they cost so much money to go to Future World that I can't go to Future World because it costs too much. But Bill Gates can go to Future World, and Mark Zuckerberg and Tesla, the Tesla guy, he can go. And I know everybody's yelling that name too. Sorry. And but why they're doing that is because then they replace them with the robots, and then they send the robots to do their deeds. So they implant them with certain memories. Anyway, it's pretty cool. 1976. It's pretty neat. It's a little dated, of course. All those 70s movies, 80s even, you sometimes go, But then me and the wife, we rented Becky, and Future World is on Amazon Prime. And so, yeah, check it out. Then we rented Becky from 2020, rented it from Redbox for $1.90. Better than the $6, although it was worth it. Would have been worth it. But it's now $10 where you could buy it. And I was like, oh, do we want to buy it? I heard it's good. I don't know. And again, Movie Chatter Podcast, they did 10 minutes at a time with Becky. And I had not listened to it until I saw Becky. Then I went back and listened to it. It was pretty fun. Because then you're like, oh, yeah, that was that part. But Becky was really cool. It was Kevin James and Lulu Johnson, I think. Anyway, Lulu, this girl playing Becky, really cool. It's like, Home Alone meets John Wick or something, but Home Alone on steroids. And it's just really cool. It's a really fun little, go rent it from Redbox. Is it worth the $6? Yeah, but definitely a Redbox rental. Check that out. That was fun. Me and the wife was like, this is messed up. She just wrote on Facebook it said, Danielle is watching Becky. And then it said, interesting. And I was like, yeah, it was good. And I was like, she's kind of crazy like you. And she was like, shut up. But yeah, she is. So anyway, it was really neat. And then on Criterion Channel, I talked about last week or maybe the week before that I saw Shin Godzilla. And that's a newer Godzilla movie. Unfortunately, I got it dubbed, but it's okay. It's still, the visuals that are important. And it was, and so I really liked that. And I had seen all the Godzilla movies up until, like 2012, whenever Toho stopped doing the Godzilla movies. I was watching all the newer ones. All the ones up until then. And I was like, oh my God, I've seen every one. I was working at the video store and I would get all these movies. And then Shin Godzilla, I hear people going, oh my God, you should see that. And I'm like, okay. So I went ahead and bought it because it was cheap. And I watched it and it was really good, as I said. And it was cool because, when you're reading like the facts about it, it's like, yeah, it's got the theme song, the original theme song in it. And you're like, oh, that's cool. But then the other day I get on Criterion and I'm like, you know what? They have all the Godzilla movies on there. I want to start from number 1 and work my way through. So I go to Godzilla 1954. Now this is Godzilla 1954. This isn't Godzilla King of the Monsters in 56. That was pretty much the exact same movie, but done with Raymond Burr. There's a name I know, but I can't think of the fucking guy from Demolition Man. So Godzilla, the original from 54, Japanese, of course, subtitled. For anybody who doesn't want to read a movie, then don't watch this Criterion Channel movie. But it was really cool. And what I didn't know, I don't think that I have seen the original. I think that maybe my first one was either, I mean, the Raymond Burr one, like I said, I'm going to watch it anyway just to see what changed. But the Raymond Burr one might have been the only one I saw. Or, God forbid, maybe the only ones I've seen are the ones in color from the 60s and 70s, you know. And so it's like, ooh, I don't think so. But anyway, this was really good. And spoiler alert, so when I watched Shin Godzilla, I'm like, and they actually like kill him. Well, he's frozen, so you don't know. Something could happen and he could come out of it. And, you know, but there's a big frozen Godzilla in the middle of the city. Spoiler alert for Shin Godzilla. But this one, I thought, oh, he's going to go back to the sea or whatever and, you know, hibernate for a while. But no, they fucking dropped this thing in there to take out all the oxygen out of the water, and he fucking, all his skin burns off and he's just bones. And I'm like, holy shit, they killed Godzilla. And so I'd like to know how they brought Godzilla back. I'm sure it was just like, here's another Godzilla. Because in Godzilla, they talk about how there's these stories of this monster coming out of the sea, and they call him, you know, Gojira, Godzilla. And so it's like, oh, okay, cool. So anyway, it was really neat. Everybody go check it out. I really liked it. I like that 50s, you know, just seeing Japan, like in the 50s and 60s movies that I watch, you know, it's really cool. And that's the last one I watched. I'm going to be watching some others, of course, you know, for the next, you know, my days off. I work tonight. Then I'm off Thursday and Friday. So I'm going to be watching a bunch of movies. So that'll be fun. And then just to let you guys know what's coming up on my regular show is August 12th, which is next Wednesday, will be GoldenEye with me and my cousin Chip. And then August 26th, on my birthday, I'm doing, well, that's when the show comes out. That'll be Tomorrow Never Dies, and that'll be with my friend Brant. He was on the Gangsters episode, and he was on the Allied Forces of World War II, and we did Spy Who Loved Me. Then on September 9th is The World Is Not Enough with my friend Joe Weedman. Been my friend since I was like 6, or maybe 7. Anyway, September 23rd, and that's on Joe's birthday when that one comes out. September 23rd is Die Another Day with my friend Sean Hansen. And October 7th is Casino Royale with Jason Bromley. And October 21st is Quantum of Solace, which I have nobody that really wants to talk about that movie. So I may just do it by myself, but who knows? I'm going to go through this and I'll tell you something that's kind of funny. And then November 4th is Skyfall, and that'll be with Brant again as well. And November 18th is Spectre with either my friend Colleen or my friend Matt Rich. We'll figure that one out. Colleen has never seen it, so I told her that might be fun for her to see that. Like, I don't know if she's seen any of these Daniel Craig movies. And then December 2nd is when I'll might put out the show for No Time to Die if it's released. I have a feeling that it will not be released on the 20th. But I'll either just talk about the movie, you know, I won't probably do a whole show on No Time to Die, but I'll do something about like how good it was or bad or what I liked or didn't like. What was funny with all these people wanting to help me out through Pierce Brosnan and Daniel Craig is that the first run through, I did 14 movies, 14 of those by myself, and I had like 4 episodes that people were on with me. So that was kind of funny that now everybody's like, yeah, I'll do it, which is cool. I love, like, thank you. It's a lot easier to go back and forth with people about it than just being stuck and not knowing what to do. So anyway, that is my show. That is the watch list. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it didn't bore you. I hope you weren't like Virtuosity, fucking model shop. Who gives a shit? Yeah, like I said, all these movies, The Thin Man, Turner Classic Movies, Psych 2, Peacock Channel, Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, Turner Classic Movies, Model Shop, Turner Classic Movies, Highlander and Virtuosity were on Pluto, so you can find those where they're like on demand, where you can just watch them, but you got to watch them with commercials. Future World is on Amazon Prime. Becky was at Redbox. And Godzilla was on Criterion Channel. And I have a bunch of stuff that I'm going to watch on Criterion Channel that I'm so excited about. But anyway, so that's it. That's my show. So I hope you enjoyed. Thank you very much. Everybody check out Movie Chatter Podcast. You can look them up on Instagram. You go to iTunes. That's where I find their show. And just do me a favor. Listen to the last one that they did. It was pretty good. They talked about what's the future of cinema going to be. It was a 10 minutes at a time, but they watched like maybe some trailers and they watched some other things. Anyway, it was really good. If that's my entrance was episode 100. That was my first one. And I was like, oh, wow, I'm hooked. Okay, I like these guys. So it was very cool. Anyway, everybody, thank you again. I'm sorry I could ramble on, but I should go to bed. I should finish my beer and go to bed and finish editing this show and putting it up. So thank you, everybody. And you know what? Just before I let you go, because it is bothering me. I said I'm not going to let it bother me, but then I sit there and all I've been thinking about is this guy with a J name from Demolition Man, and I cannot think of his name. It's on the tip of my tongue, but I cannot get it. So now I am going to look it up before I let you guys go. It's not a J name. How dare I? It's Benjamin Bratt. It's not a J name at all. I think I was thinking Jesse Hernandez, not Jesse Hernandez. The guy that took over for Magnum PI, Jay Hernandez. I think I was thinking of him. But anyway, Benjamin Bratt. That's the guy. That's the beautiful Mexican guy. Anyway, everybody check out Blood In, Blood Out. It's a little melodramatic, but it's really cool. It's like this Mexican gang stuff. It's really cool. Anyway, check that out. Also, for some fun, me and the wife have been just falling asleep to Family Matters. And that's just a wholesome, good show. So, I know it's like, come on, Urkel, really? But just, ease your mind off and just, sometimes you need some wholesome. Sometimes there's too much violence and death and things in the world. So anyway, I'll leave you with that. And, keep watching movies and let me know what you guys have watched that you might like. Let me know at mycellularheart@gmail.com or that number, 602-688-2403. That's 688-2403. 602 is the area code. And you can leave a text there, or you can leave a message, and I will play it, and I will watch whatever movie you want me to watch. So, because like all my friends say, he watches anything. Not true. But here lately, I've been watching stuff that I haven't seen. I'm like, do I want to rewatch something like Highlander or Virtuosity, or do I want to watch something I haven't seen like Future World? And I'm like, oh, cool. I'm glad I did. Okay, now I'll let you go. Thank you, everybody. Goodbye. Have a good day.